everything that has come out in the last 20 years is absolute trash. And the only reason you like it is because you love the original so much that you're like, I really want this to be good.
Welcome back to Gamified, the show where people who work in gaming break down the biggest stories in the industry, one game mode at a time. Every topic has a format. Every panelist gets a clock, and nobody gets to be boring. This is episode 159. This week, GameStop tries to buy eBay. Gaming VC has its worst year in a decade. Star Wars is in Fortnite, and it's okay. And we hire a new head of products, but let's get into it. Up first, he's a multi-time founder, co-creator of the #1 NFT trading game of all time. It's the Prince of Parallel. It's Koji.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I'm excited. Let's get into it like we did last week. I'm ready to get silly.
Last week was spicy, man. Yeah, we've added a couple of features to the docket as well, which I'm excited about. Up next, from wrangling teenagers, coveting Fortnite fame at Soar Esports, he's now the DGen designer at Digital Collectors Club. It's Knock.
I've been giving you guys an update every week, so I'll continue here. We've cracked top 100 in the RuneScape League. I've been playing way too much RuneScape.
A founder who's gainfully employed somehow still has time.
Perfect second monitor game, baby.
I understand. Up next, business-brained bullshit detector with a gift for cutting through the hype. Formerly at Disney and Universal, it is charismatic Chris Heatherly. And he's the data-driven decoder of audience behavior who spent years turning research, measurement, and market messiness into stories that are useful and impossible to ignore. At Mind Game, it's Colin Neese.
Hey, what up? I'm like 15 hours in Crimson Desert. I finally understand the game. It took me 15 hours, though.
Dude, I'm like 8 and I still hate my life. I'm sure at some point I'll like it again, but it's been like 2 weeks, so I forget all the buttons, and so I can't get back into it again. Up next, he started his career drawing NFL licensed posters, did strategy at Mattel and Ubisoft. Then in 2019, he founded the first professional Roblox studio and now runs one of the biggest in the world, 30 billion lifetime visits, 3 of the top 10 branded Roblox games of all time. The Sonic, Barbie, and NFL on Roblox came through him. It is, the first ever brand integration into a Fortnite creative game. First time on the show, we are welcoming Joe Ferenz.
All right. Thank you for having me. And I am 6 hours into Mouse PI Detective for Hire, and it is delightful.
Nice.
That's awesome, dude. I forgot to add.
I've been meaning to play that. I need to get on that.
It's far better than I had any reasonable expectations it would be, is my take on that.
The name is not doing it justice. I got to look into this one. Last but not least, he looked at the gaming industry and decided that indies needed a champion. Welcome back to the panel, Will Spangler.
Just got back from Gamescom LATAM last week, and there was some guy saying that indies weren't the future. And let's just say we had a frank exchange of views, which is the reason my eye is like this. So
the audacity, dude. Number 1 on the docket today, GameStop wants to buy eBay, a company 4 times its size. What are the odds that this actually happens? Is the game mode. It wants 0% to 100%. A company with a $12 billion market cap just made a $55 billion offer to buy this company. GameStop trying to buy eBay. The offer is $125 a share, 50-50 cash and GameStop stock, roughly a 20% premium to last Friday's close, up 46% depending on where you put the benchmark. They've already quietly built a 5% stake in eBay through shares and derivatives. TD Securities wrote a highly confident, quote unquote, letter for up to $20 billion in financing to make this deal happen. There are rumors of sovereign wealth funds also backing the rest. Ryan Cohen, the CEO of GameStop's pitch is simple. Combine eBay's marketplace with GameStop's 1,600 stores to build, quote, a legit competitor to Amazon with heavy focus on collectibles, unquote. Cohen runs the combined company in this supposed proposal. eBay's board responded with a statement that is the corporate version of "we will get back to you," and Cohen has already signaled that he would go hostile if the board says no with a proxy fight and direct shareholder appeal. Give me your numbers first. What are the odds that GameStop can actually pull this off? Wills, I'm asking you first.
I'm going to go 10%.
I'll give you 8.
2% if it's stock, 10% if it's stunk.
Chris?
Over 50.
Wow. Koji?
Wow. All right.
I was going to say like 18 to 20%.
In a post-Paramount world, I'll go 30. Otherwise, I would go 8.
Knock, take us away. Why did you choose that number?
Well, I was going to say 10, and Wills took 10 first. That's why I chose 8. But that being said, I mean, look, I think on the surface, the actual case for this acquisition is maybe more interesting than people are giving credit to. I think there's clear synergies between the direction that GameStop has been headed in under Ryan Cohen and what eBay is doing. GameStop wants to become a collectibles powerhouse. The collectibles market is exploding. eBay is where most of those sales are happening. And if you look at eBay, they're spending a whole ton of money and aren't really doing much with it. They spent, I think the number was close to $12 billion last year in trying to bring in more users to the platform. They increased total new users to the platform by just 1 million over that same period of time. So there's clearly some stagnation that's happening on the side of eBay. I gave it an 8% because I don't think that this deal or this proposed structure was ever meant to be a real serious tender for eBay. I think what this is meant to do is put some strategic pressure on eBay. Now there's a question internally, do we value the stock at $125 a share or should we be worth more? If not, why aren't we worth more? I think that this creates questions from the board and hopefully puts some pressures on other shareholders within the business. To me, this definitely does not go through as is, but I think Ryan Cohen here is playing a little bit of a longer game, and over time, those numbers move a little closer. Not to mention, eBay has a lot of cash. They're sitting on $9.5 billion in funds. That's a far cry away from the 27.5 that they're going to need in order to meet the half and half stock and cash.
Chris, how is it even possible that a company 1/4 the size of eBay could acquire eBay, and then the balls on this guy to threaten to do a hostile takeover if they don't accept? What do you make of this, and how do you get to 50%?
He's got a lot of balls, man. I mean, Ryan Cohen is one of those like unicorn CEOs that I'm betting for. I mean, look, this isn't. I think when people hear GameStop CEO, because they know that GameStop has been in the gutter, for a long time, they think oh, he must be some retail yokel. This is a guy he's 39. He's pretty young. He founded Chewy.com. He's a billionaire. He's Canadian, so that's why Knock is voting for him. And he's done a great job with GameStop, right? He took a meme stock that had retail interest, and he's dramatically improved the financials. He's improved the business. The guy is a hell of an operator. This company should be long dead by now. He's increased their cash position. He's invested in crypto. So he's a very smart financial operator. He's got all the money ties that he needs to pull this off. And he was on TVPN the other day pointing out that eBay has 11,500 employees. And I mean, that's just an insane number of employees, right? For a website that doesn't take any inventory. They're just a broker. So there's so much and they spend, I think it's $2 billion or 2.5 billion in marketing a year. Have you ever do you need marketing to know that eBay is there? So it just seems like there's this guy, can generate a lot of value for shareholders. And I think he's going to and he's got a lot of money behind him. So I think he's going to pull it off.
Let's tag in Koji to find out why that was incorrect and then go to Joe.
Well, I'm somewhere in between Knock and Chris. And I think that I was going to say that I also saw that interview and a couple other interviews, and he is an obnoxious asshole. And I was going to say that that's a knock against him, but it really isn't, because we live in a world of Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And so I think the only way to get ahead really is to be an obnoxious asshole. So maybe it'll work for him. I also think it's hilarious that the pitch from GameStop is we have physical stores, because I can't help but think of the scene from 40-Year-Old Virgin with Jonah Hill being I just want to buy these boots. Can't I just buy them from you? Why do I have to go online? But yeah, I mean, I think, again, I mentioned Musk already, but I think in a world where Musk casually is yeah, maybe I'll buy Twitter, and then somehow ends up buying Twitter because he said he would. This is a world where I think that they're just trying to drum up some publicity for themselves and offering up GameStop stock. I mean, can I buy eBay with Prime at this point? Because who the fuck knows what that's going to be worth in a month or two or a year or whatever. And I don't think the guys who own eBay, Vanguard and BlackRock are interested so much in GameStop stock. They probably prefer eBay. But at the same time, we live in a world where literally anything can happen. So I think the chances are higher than we think it is that like something off the wall crazy could occur here. But really, I think it's just like, let's get GameStop back in the news and get people talking about it.
Yeah, you could give me a lot of opportunities to guess at two companies that could form a competitor to Amazon, and I would probably never put these two together as the tag team to do it. Joe, tagging you in, why do you pick the number that you did?
Well, I agree with Knock that, the structure, I think that was Knock who was saying the structure just doesn't make sense in terms of the stock swap to begin with. I just caught wind of this, I think yesterday on YouTube. I saw like on my feed, GameStop makes offer to buy eBay, and I thought it was maybe a story from The Onion or something like that. But and then I see this guy Ryan Cohen. I'm watching the interview with him, and I have to admit he didn't come off as a very charming or charismatic person. I will stand by that. Someone else said that, and that's true. And I looked him up. I was like, who is this? This guy's a crypto billionaire or something like that. Not there's anything wrong with being a crypto billionaire, but I kind of had crypto billionaire vibes. But no, he's legit. He's a legit operator. I agree, and I think that he sees an undermanaged asset. He thinks he's kind of like whatever. A Warren Buffett, a Carl Icahn type guy. He sees a huge undermanaged business as I can manage this better. And he happens to, this is his play to make that happen. I do think it puts a lot of pressure on the eBay management team and on the ownership and shareholders and board of eBay to think about, is this business so badly undermanaged that GameStop could take it over with a partial stock transaction? Where I'm left just scratching my head is, what is the synergy between these businesses? The idea of the retail part being a synergy to eBay. What are they going to randomly distribute random eBay collectibles into GameStop stores and hope they sell with foot traffic? Makes no sense.
Yeah, something around distribution might kind of make sense there. Colin, tagging you in.
I first off, as someone who writes a side hustle selling stuff on eBay, watching the future people who would manage my systems to be GameStop is not something I thought I was going to see this year, but here we are. My first one is like, why not buy Whatnot? Why not buy Loot Labs? Why not buy like middle-aged women and grandmas who are like unloading things in their garage to the greater world? Like eBay was the collector distribution platform from like a bygone era. Now they're just kind of a shell of like Silicon Valley past, in my opinion, but here we are. And maybe that's why they are trying to go after them. I'm dubious that Zeal happens, but we live in a post-Paramount world where you could just make up money and go after and buy something. If you're rich enough, you have the right connections, your call out to the Salvi Wealth Fund is like, well, there you go. That's it. If they want to shovel cash into this thing and they see some sort of value of owning a digital platform in the US by proxy of GameStop, then maybe it can happen. And that's why I give it like a 30% chance. But on its face, it's just kind of ludicrous. Like what is GameStop doing now? They fix their business into what? A Pokemon company? They just sell Pokemon cards in their store. So every so often when they get them in stock, they have a line going outside the door in the Arcadia Mall to get their Pokemon cards, and then no one goes in there again until they get them back in stock. And so when that market crashes, which it inevitably will, as all markets tend to do, like they're going to also crash. So it makes no sense. The interviews make it sound like this is just part of something larger. I think people have made that comment, and I'm incredibly dubious. And I just don't understand if it's a business thing. Why don't they go after something a bit smaller, more actually achievable, like Whatnot?
Yeah, Joe made a point about the pressure this might put on the eBay management team. And I think that's a good point because they were offering a 20% or maybe even higher, again, depending where you benchmark that stock price premium on the value of the company. And so to say no to this, if it is a legitimate offer, you have to have a good reason for why you're going to be able to outperform that. Let's go over to Will's and then we'll tag Knock back in.
Yeah, I think most of the high level kind of like the structure of the deal stuff has already been covered by the rest of the panelists. But I think what's really interesting is also looking at the recent moves that GameStop has been making on their own platform with their I was just looking it up, and they have a new platform. I believe it's called Power Packs, which is like an online card ripping platform that is actually getting a lot of hate because of the amount of money that it, or at least from the few articles that I've seen, it's People are calling it price gouging. People are calling it taking advantage of collectors. And I think it's an interesting play. They have the facilities and they have the reputation already at this point of like they're starting to become a much more collectibles oriented business. And we're talking about like, okay, well, how does this plug into the the distribution that they have? Why would I go to a physical store when I could just order it online? And the model that comes to mind for me is CarMax. It's like all of these people in various locations. How do you cater to specific markets and give people that kind of like gambling thrill each time they go into a GameStop? What's the cool new stuff that's going to be there? What is the stuff that I can buy? Because that clearly seems to be the audience that they're going after. And if that's the kind of play they're making, 100% agree with Cohen. What does maybe eBay isn't the right choice, but I think a lot of those teams and a lot of those smaller companies who might be looking for an exit or looking for a larger distribution provider might now start going to GameStop and being like, hey, can we talk? Like maybe we can give you a better service than eBay can.
I want to tag in. Colin, go ahead, and then we'll tag Knock in.
Oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, totally. And I got one thing I was finding out. No, like they're saying they're going to be Amazon. So they're going to open a distribution center in Riverside County and give me all my collectibles and then like a day's worth of shipping for free. Like, come on. Like, that's not a real business they're going after because they don't have the capital nor do they have the physical real estate. I think when people talk about Amazon, they underestimate how big their actual business is just from the distribution hubs that they run and operate across the country and worldwide. Hold on. So anyways, ludicrous on its face on that one, but I'll pass it to Knock.
Yeah, Knock, go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I think that there's a lot here that people are maybe discrediting on the size of these two businesses. So the collectibles industry overall in 2025 was pegged at $320 billion. The projected growth there is for that number to look closer to $600 billion within the next 8 years. Most of online sales for collectibles happen on eBay to the tune of $4.5 billion per year as of 2025 between trading card games and sports cards alone. That does not include any other type of collectible. You look at GameStop, they've taken a collectible first approach. They very clearly understand the language. They understand how to communicate with that type of audience. What they're doing here is trying to put pressure on the digital sales component because despite all of the changes that they've made to their business model, their lunch is still being eaten on game sales. They cannot compete with the Steam or the many competitors within that space. So they have to find an answer for what collectible sales online look like. When you talk about their homes and their hubs, collectibles are really breaking into two categories, right? There's the in-person physical location. It's your trade shows. It's your trade nights. It's let's go see the things that you have. And then most people are still making the purchases to show off on those physical locations on digital platforms like eBay. All that this is, as it stands today, and the reason why I give it an 8% chance of happening as is Ryan Cohen putting pressure on eBay management because eBay rolled out a new strategy just last year. They now have to publicly justify why they are turning down the offer from GameStop. They have to explain why their strategy is going to make their stock worth more than a 20% premium. And they have to do so while defending this publicly from a company that currently owns 5% of the total value of eBay. There's very clearly a goodwill perspective that Ryan can come and say like, hey, we're just looking out for the rest of the shareholders here. We've got a big interest in ourselves. We think that we can do a better job than existing management. I think the problem that you see here is that GameStop is sitting on $9.5 billion worth of cash and they have nowhere to put it. So they're signaling, hey, we're serious about M&A. We're serious about putting pressure. And it might not be eBay that falls, but they want to signal that we are going to do this one way or another. That's what this is. I think that they do probably end up acquiring somebody, but it's not going to happen as is. And it probably won't be eBay.
So is Whatnot feeling pretty good about itself right now? Sorry. Like they're like, hey, Whatnot. It's like, can we get them on the phone? Like, can they come by us?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure call it as stock and Whatnot at this point.
Basically.
But the thing is that he looks like a genius either way because he's made a big swing and now he's on TBPN and he's on CNBC and the stock that everybody thought was like for a dying retail business that people are not really paying attention to GameStop other than the short squeeze. Like he's transformed how people are thinking about it as like a Berkshire like vehicle to do interesting things with. And for him to be like a, raider, corporate raider type CEO. So, if he buys something like Whatnot, it'll be much more newsworthy than before.
I think, yeah, the biggest thing here is He's removing the pressure from himself as CEO of GameStop. He's done a great job of tapping into the meme stocks. He's done a great job in tapping into the culture. He's increased revenue for GameStop as a business, and he's increased their cash position, but he hasn't had a real reason to deploy that capital. Now people are looking at Ryan Cohen and GameStop and saying, you're sitting on $9 billion worth of cash. What are you going to do with it to increase the value of this company? If nothing else, making this public tender to a company like eBay takes a little bit of pressure off of Ryan and allows him to think a little bit more about the way that that cash gets distributed. If this buys him 6 months to a year where he can keep it in the headline and say, hey, we're really trying to buy eBay, and it doesn't play out and he has an alternative path for that $9 billion, great. But I think it's smart on both sides because it puts pressure on eBay and it removes pressure from him as CEO of GameStop so that he can figure out what to do with the mountains of cash that they're sitting on.
Not just that, but the 1,600 warehouses, or I guess you could call them stores, but essentially they're warehouses at this point, so that they can do digital distribution. Wills, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think like it's we're kind of not talking about the fact that, because obviously we all know what happened with GME and like how crazy that was and how many people that brought into retail investing, period, who had never been in this space before. People, like, I was chatting to some guys, like dads at Hot Yoga, and they're still like, this was a couple weeks ago before this, and they're still talking about GameStop. It's still a stock that they're following, and they're like, oh yeah, the community's active. No, it is. It's that's
for Hot Yoga.
That retail audience is still a very big part of GameStop's strategy, and those are the kinds of people that are interested in following these headlines and those are the kind of people that are going to get excited by something like this. So I think that this strategy playing into that is very much a core piece of it.
Chris, anything you objected to besides Hot Yoga in that statement?
Hot Yoga was my objection.
Well, he said dads.
Where you get the boots
he said
on the
dad, so we know that's a lie, because if he was there and there was one more dad there could not have been more than one more other dad at Hot Yoga. Impossible.
Yeah, the plural is really suspect there. Joe, you wanted to chime in on this?
Yeah, it's just been interesting. I don't know. I'm not a expert in the physical collectibles business. I know a lot about digital collectibles that we'll get into when we talk about UEFN and things like that, and how those economies work on UGC platforms, which are truly mostly collectible driven economies overall. But as I hear more about this, I do think it's interesting, and maybe Ryan Cohen has a better story to tell about how there is synergy between the collectible business on eBay and what goes on at GameStop stores. I still just haven't heard that, and I'm not sure when I watched his interview how much thought he's put into this, or that if this is a publicity gambit. If it's a publicity gambit, well, God bless, he killed it, crushed it, 10 out of 10.
Can anybody fact check me too? Didn't eBay buy PayPal? Like, would this mean that GameStop also acquires PayPal, or is that spun out into an?
No, PayPal's its own thing. They let it go, and it spun off into its own thing, and now it's worth more than eBay. So there you go. History of eBay in a nutshell.
Yeah, I was gonna say that valuation sounds low if PayPal is still a part of it. Anyway, we move on. Topic number 2: why gaming VCs might come back. We're going to devil's advocate this one. We're going to try to make the best case for gaming that we can, but the graph that you're about to see on your screens is not great. 2021 on the left there, and 2025, well, the first half of 2025 on the right there. So not a complete apples to apples comparison, but no matter how you slice it, doesn't look great. Gaming VC on track, for the worst year in over a decade. 627 million raised in the first half of 2025, a fraction of the 12.5 billion in 2021, and not a single round crossed 100 million all year. But the money didn't necessarily leave venture; it just left games. A16Z raised 15 billion in January, including a dedicated consumer apps fund. El Cateron raised 11 billion for consumer apps in 2025, the largest dedicated consumer raise in history. Mikhail Kakov from Deconstructor of Fun had a great article where he said the acquirers got acquired, IDFA broke mobile distribution, and the supersized COVID-era gaming funds now need lottery ticket outcomes to just return capital. Derek Smart on LinkedIn also added that math broke 2 years ago for VCs. There's no funding unless you're in Istanbul making puzzle games, tools, or apps, or embrace a slow, bootstrapped grind. Again, devil's advocate here. Give me the reason why you guys believe that gaming, might be fine. And if that's the case, what bottom at this gaming bottom would you buy? I know a lot of people have talked about the Istanbul puzzle games. A lot of people are building tools. A lot of people are excited about indies. What particularly pops up for you? Will's going to you first.
Yeah, I'm going to say a lot of like looking at those numbers, and if you would look back at the kinds of stuff that people were investing in and the ways that people were investing in gaming studios, it was retarded. Like, it just a better word. Like, money was so cheap, there was so much growth, people were making stupid decisions, and I think that's what a large amount of that can be chalked up to, is people were spending money idiotically. And I think, frankly, it's been good to see the gaming market. You know, everyone's talking, oh, gaming's in the gutter. And yeah, because the people that were there because of the $12.5 billion of retarded money that was around have gone. And now people are building real tools and real games. And I think that there is money available for games and for studios. It's just not equity investments. And that's not like the project financing model that most games, and especially indie games and larger games and that kind of double A, triple I space, are doing project financing. Money exists for those games. There is publisher funding, but the VC model is much more compatible on the tooling side. What those tools are going to be right now remains to be seen. I think that there's a lot of cool stuff happening in enabling people to build games and market games as a solo dev. That's where I think the real growth is going to be coming. You know, we were talking about Roblox, which is a great example of that. It's a distribution center for games that allows people to get their games up and off the ground running. And my argument is the same here as it was there, that the tools that allow you to do that outside of Roblox and Fortnite and on platforms like Steam and consoles are going to be the ones that succeed. However you can help solo and indie teams do well, people are going to be paying for those services.
Koji, I'm tagging you in, and then Joe.
Yeah, Wills, man, dropping the R word like it's 2021 on the chart there. But you know what? Like, I think people here are gonna give out business oriented answers. I'm just gonna go like, well, I won't use Will's word here, but I'm just gonna go smooth brained and just say, like, gaming will be back because people like to have fun and they want new toys, you know. And like, I know I always go back to movies, and I'm gonna do it again. Like, theater attendance this year is up, like, I think like 15 or 20% as compared to last year. And that is something that people have to leave their house to do, right? People get bored. They want new things. What that's going to look like is going to be different, right? We started the topic by talking about VC money, and it's just like, yeah, you know what those guys want? Profit. They don't care about fun. They don't care about like making things. What they want is, I give you $1, you give me back $2. You know, and so like the way that games are funded and how they're built is going to be different, but are games going to come back? Absolutely. Because people get bored with what they have and they want to move on to something else. And, you know, will that look more like Balatro or what's the new Vampire Survivors game? Oh my God. Like Vampire Crawlers or whatever. You're like, yeah, it might be more akin to that than it is like GTA 6, but I do think that we're going to see a rise in gaming. And I think what's going to happen with the squeeze on hardware is people are going to be forced to innovate because you can't just build bigger and build better. And so we're going to see some new and interesting things come about, and that's going to make gaming thrive.
Joe, I'm excited to tag you in here. You are in maybe one of the only hot sectors still in gaming in UGC. Tell me, what should we be buying the low of with the current state of where we're at?
Well, I was the first person in the world to raise venture funding for Roblox that I am aware of. And when I did that, we pitched 40 VCs on our seed round. This was in 2020. And 39 said no, and 1 said yes. Now, as I like to say, anyone with Roblox written on a piece of paper can kind of raise like, you know, $2 to $3 million. Although it's getting harder. It's getting harder because the VC model is, you know, the VC model is so particular and so specific around what the economics are. And frankly, in a world where solopreneurs can create games like Balatro, like Vampire Crawlers that, you know, can generate, let's call it whatever, anywhere from $5 to $45 million, where Eric Baroni can make Stardew Valley, you know, in his bedroom over 5 years and generate hundreds of millions of dollars. You know, you don't really need capital anymore. You know, like what Wills was saying, like on Roblox, like you already have networking built in. I know tons of solo devs, and now people are vibe coding entire functional Roblox games. So you don't need capital, but at the same time, the outcomes are so exciting on a project financing basis. I have my own fund. I'm doing project financing. I'm also advising new UGC platforms, because platforms do make sense for venture. Studios, publishers don't make sense for venture. Middleware tools, maybe if they can scale. But the problem with venture is scale, is that there's too much capital. We're in late stage capitalism, as we all know. There's just too much capital looking to beat the S&P. And guess what? Warren Buffett says the S&P will beat almost anything unless you have a very specialized point of view over a 10-year period. And the math on that, I've checked it on 3 different LLMs. They all agree with Warren Buffett, by the way, on this. So you've got to find something that is just outsized in terms of its potential for return, and the microeconomics of content. You know, that's not realistic. That's not realistic.
Couple of mic drops for Joe there. Let's go to Wills real quick, who is spamming to get in, and then we'll go to Colin.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one point, and I do agree with you that yes, on paper, platforms, let's go build a platform, let's go build a giant MMO UGC platform. Like that pitch is something I've heard like a million times probably in the last 3 years, and I can't think of one case outside of the ones that we all know, Fortnite, Roblox, where it's actually worked. Like I think that it was, and this is the problem with the way that VC funding was working, is it was encouraging those models, and capital was being directed towards those models, even though those models weren't going to work because the incumbents were already just getting off of the ground and moving into become more and more entrenched. And I think that the capital, like, constantly across like all sort of consumer, like when you talk to gamers, there's so much frustration around how much money and time was wasted by proper studios that used to make great games, making the next, live service AAA, platform with UGC capability. That's not what people wanted. People wanted versions of those. The demand for those wasn't as big as we thought it was, and that's when the majority of that 12.5 billion went, and it just disappeared up in smoke. And now there's a massive gap for those studios to start making the games that people actually want.
You know who was really easy to get funded? If you had worked at Riot, you could.
Oh my God, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, my God,
show up with Riot on the resume and the
bloody Riot employees.
So there were a lot of poorly conceived, massively ambitious, sadly, too ambitious games that had $30 million, to get to market, that were going to be live services games. Good luck. You know what I mean? Like good luck. But I think what's changed, I just want to add one thing, which is I agree with everything you said, Wills, except I want to add that there's 2 things that have changed in the last 12 months specifically. Change number 1, I think, is that UGC gaming, specifically on Roblox, has become much bigger than we ever thought it was going to be. And it's become bigger based on crap, based on stuff that like you would not have believed could become as popular as it is. And with that, and that combined with the generative AI advances in the past 12 months, I believe will open up new UGC platform opportunities that simply didn't exist or conceivably over the last 5 years.
Let's get Colin in here. I see Koji also chopping at the bit.
Joe just took my take. I was gonna say, if you're a fucking Riot or ex-Blizzard employee, you could walk in a room and get a pile of money and just claim that you were like next to Mark Merrow when he had the brilliant idea of making a kind of clone of Dota, right? So, and you can take 5% credit. Like, I mean, like, to be honest, like that whole model failed because part of the problem was they were making games and they're like, and what about marketing? Well, if we build it, gamers will come, and they didn't fucking spend $1 on marketing. Like, no one knows your game exists. Like, I'm sorry, you can cry on Twitter that everyone's being mean to you, but if you don't spend $1 on marketing your game, it's going to die on the vine. That's just true for every game. So they go, EA, well, what can EA bring? I don't know, a fucking jump truck of cash to get awareness on your game. I mean, you discount that, but that's literally what they do. That's the whole point of a publisher. Anyways, I digress. Can the VC world come back? I mean, a dystopian me says, well, we're all getting laid off and we're all sitting on our hands with time on our hands. There's a world in which gaming becomes a great way to like kill time. And then maybe you see a resurgence in gaming and then the VC money comes back in there. But I think Joe's absolutely right. Platforms are investable. You invest in platforms scale because you aggregate a bunch of things underneath it and you monetize it a la ads or whatever you might do, right? But the platform is a thing you can invest in. Games is an isolated thing, really, really challenging. And if they're going to make a case of games as a platform, they're lying to you. They're not. No, they're games. The games are games, right? Platforms are ecosystems, and Roblox is an ecosystem. Valve and Steam is an ecosystem. Xbox is an ecosystem. Everything else is not an ecosystem. So that's my point. But Joe, you took my heat. Good job on the right.
I clicked the wrong mic drop. I mic dropped you, but I clicked the wrong button. Mic drop, bro.
I spiritually got it. I spiritually got the mic drop. Thank you.
That was some amazing foreshadowing for our last topic of the day. I can't wait. Koji, I'm going to you quickly, then Chris.
Yeah, Joe, you clicked on me. It's too late. I'm taking the mic drop. I'm sorry.
You gotta earn it now. But let's see. Retroactive.
Yeah.
No, I think that like the argument that VCs aren't coming back, like I would say like who fucking needs them at this point? You know, like the barrier to entry to create these things has never been lower. It's never been lower. Like I always talk about movies, but if you can shoot a feature film on an iPhone, like you can vibe code enough of a game to prove your point, to get it out there in the world and see if it actually has legs and then make the thing, right? Like we don't, yes, you need money to make games. I'm not making that argument, but what I'm saying is that like you can really get yourself off the ground first. And to Joe's point earlier, like people are making what other people consider to be garbage and it being wildly successful. You know, I've said on the show before that like as a musician, if you just farted in a kazoo and you were selling tickets, like you're one of the greatest musicians in the world, right? Because you're doing better than 95% of people. So like it's not even about the content you create, it's about whether or not people are willing to consume it, you know? And so we have the tools. They've never been cheaper. People can make this stuff and test it out and see if people want to consume it and then go on to do bigger and better things. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that necessarily the VC money has to be there for gaming to come back.
Chris, what's your take on this one, brother?
So the dirty secret in venture is that, and I was talking to a friend in venture the other day, the family offices who are the LPs into these funds are actually sourcing the deals themselves and bypassing the venture guys. And they're doing it because there's so much consolidation around what performs in the stock market and what startups actually do well. And so LPs are kind of getting out of this mode of like, oh, there's a diamond in the rough that you haven't heard of, and how do we get a piece of like something? How do I get a VC fund to bring me something that I don't know about? And they're more of the mind that like, hey, if it's a Cursor or a Anthropic or an OpenAI, like we're going to hear about it because they're going to come to us on the tour, and we can just fund it directly. And so that's a huge problem for the venture guys. I think if you want to see where gaming venture quote unquote is going, look at what Griffin announced. I think it was today. They announced $100 million project completion fund. You know, that's not venture capital. It is sourced from some of the same LPs, but that is strictly a rev share model, no equity, right? I think one of the big problems for venture has been that there aren't really equity exits for a lot of these games, and pushing game founders for equity exits winds up breaking the company in a lot of cases, where if you just do some kind of rev share agreement, it allows them to continue to operate with maybe a smaller audience, and without having to sell their company or give up their company or some outcome that isn't really what they're looking to do. So I just think the nature of it's changing. I also think that that games are really becoming content. You know, if you look at what's going on with Roblox, if you look at Expedition 33 being built, almost entirely on Blueprint, like the days where you have like a huge developer, like actual engineer, a lot of engineers on staff are kind of disappearing, and it's going to be more, art, game design, hybrid type people who can wear a lot of hats in small teams. And so the funding for that is going to look a lot more like, it's going to be the creator economy, and it's going to look a lot more like the YouTube world, right? Where you've got, small teams that are getting, that are self-funding, or they're getting a small amount of funding, or they're crowdfunding, right? I think Patreon's going to become a bigger thing. Kickstarter is already a thing in indie. It's a big thing in trading card games. Physical trading card games and board games is one of the big verticals. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff, and platforms like Roblox or Pokey or Crazy Games. I mean, I dropped a thing on LinkedIn the other day that Pokey is, which most people, in the games industry have never heard of, what's that, Cullen?
I've heard of it. I've met them. I've heard of it. They're great. They're like the 8th largest thing in gaming, but nobody talks about it.
But most people haven't heard of it. It's actually the most searched for term on Google Trends behind Roblox, right? And more than Steam, more than Xbox, PlayStation, any of the consoles. So, I just think the nature of it is changing. The other thing I'll just say is that AI is going to change this, in that everything is going to have to get rebuilt with AI, and AI startups have a distinct advantage over large existing companies that need to lay off and cut staff, and it's all negative for them, right? To get to competitive, where it's all positive for these AI companies starting from the ground up, and they're going to embrace AI more, right? They don't have to fight their employee base. And so you're going to have a ton, there's going to be massive turnover in the S&P. This is going to be a huge trade, right? Over the next couple of years, AI incumbents taking out legacy companies. And so it gets really hard to invest venture capital into startups when you have this kind of generational opportunity in apps and other things that are not as hit driven.
Knock, I'm tagging you in that we're going to Will's.
Yeah, I'll not to beat a dead horse, but I'll add, I think venture capital used to be about risk mitigation. And what that used to mean was, let's place a bunch of bets. Let's make sure that we're not over allocating in a particular category. And let's hope that one of these 5 or 6 players hits and it covers the loss that we would have on the other 4 failing. Today, what risk mitigation means is, if it hasn't already worked and there isn't a blueprint for this to have been successful, let's ignore it entirely. And that's what you're seeing. It's part of the reason why the same types of games continue to get funded. It's part of the reason why you see 1,000 prediction market companies today, because once something is proven as successful, that's where we're going to allocate capital, because it's no longer about finding necessarily a diamond in the rough. It's about finding somebody who has a formula that has proven to be working and can grow and allocate capital at scale to increase revenue. So I think part of the problem overall is also that venture has changed, where it's less about creativity. It's less about taking a shot that nobody's taken before. It's less about finding a new ecosystem earlier than everybody else. And it's more about, let's just not waste this capital. Let's allocate in something that has already been proven. And it's had a massive impact on the types of games that have been funded over the course of the last 10 years. Most of those games have been pretty shit.
Will's tagging you in, then I'd love to go back to Joe, who's putting some good stuff in the comments.
And just to kind of jump off of Knox's point, I think that the key thing that doesn't exist right now for indie developers who want to raise some form of capital, whether that's project financing, whether that's getting a publisher, whether that's investment, is rails and tools to get their game seen, to get their game, players visibility, all of the and all of the kind of initial QA stuff that goes into, that kind of raw indie development. People are still winging it. Like indie devs, like game development as a hobby and making games for fun has been proven. We've seen it in Roblox, we've seen it in Fortnite. And those are currently the only platforms that are taking advantage like that and treating game developers as a hobbyist group. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for tooling to come in and support that group, whether it be from the development side, from the marketing side, from the sort of go-to-market side, that kind of takes that step before fundraising occurs. So I think that's where we're going to see the most amount of growth in terms of where people are spending money.
Joe, you're mentioning something about VCs. Are you comfortable saying that?
You want to hear? No, but you want to hear something funny? Is I had a call today with a 17-year-old who's got an AI middleware platform for game developers up and running, generating a few tens of thousands of dollars in revenue a month, and he just is raising hundreds of thousands of dollars at a multi-million-dollar. He's 17. He's a junior. He's a junior in high school. This is the world we now live in, is that all of us are all basically no smarter than a 17-year-old. By the way, I talk to developers who start at like sometimes 14. They contact me and they're like, hey, I have a game I want to pitch you. And I'm like, how old are you? And if they say under 16, they are not ready to develop, like developmentally, like they're not going to ship working product. The kid who made Grow a Garden on Roblox, who's now a centimillionaire, was 16 when he made the game. So I actually believe 16 is probably about the youngest that you can see. And that's what's really scary is these 16-year-olds, basically, they have no cost of living. They have no obligations. They're all blowing off school. Half of them are going to school from home. This kid I was talking to, he's homeschooled. Okay. He's homeschooled. His father's a successful options trader, and that's his co-pilot on the business. Okay. Anyway, I think that, the VC model is extremely lumpy. It's exit driven, right? Which is only one way to make money. And that's the problem. I was a VC funded founder. Okay. I raised a lot of money, tens of millions of dollars in VC funding, and it worked out, well enough, but the company is not on its way to a huge exit anytime in the very near future because the market multiples changed. We went from a world during the boom times, right, where companies were being valued at 10 to 30x revenue to less than 6 months later, companies were being valued at 2 to 4x cash flow. Whoa. Like, talk about whiplash, right? Like, how can both of these things have been true within the same 1 year period? And I think what we're seeing now is AI is where there's going to be scaled exits. There's going to be scaled IPOs. I do believe there's going to be an IPO bubble for AI that a lot of people are going to do very well on. And then eventually it's going to catch up with, do these things actually generate long-term scaled cash flows, or are they all kind of like solving problems that don't necessarily need to be solved or people won't be willing to pay for? But I think overall, I don't think VC is going to come back to gaming or game content anytime soon. But I think things like what Griffin is doing, that's a way to make money in gaming. There are lots of opportunities to generate positive financial outcomes at multi-million, even, mid 8-figure levels in the gaming space. Lots of them. But there's not a lot of opportunities to generate multi-billion-dollar outcomes in the gaming space right now, right? And that's where VCs, they need that. That's their business model. That's what they've promised their LPs.
Well, and the reality is, if you invest into something like a Grow a Garden, or you invest into something like Mugenics or something like that, it may not be a venture bet, but the upside potential on some of those games is tremendous, right? They could, the profit they could generate. So, there's a strong case for why to invest. It just has to be the right model. By the way, you guys should LP into my new early stage fund for preschoolers. I'm really gonna try to get them before they get to Joe, right?
Right. Before they get to middle school is when they have their best ideas and the most time to work on them. They don't even have homework in elementary school, guys. They're free to work on their business ideas all day.
If you're not raising by high school, it's too late.
Give them a phone with nothing but Super Whisper installed on it, and it just goes straight into your vibe coding platform. We move on. That was a great topic, though. Free Xbox Game Pass design. Is this possible? Our very own Colin Neese was talking about the possibility of this happening on LinkedIn. The question here is red flag or green flag for a free tier of Xbox Game Pass to exist? And then how would you design it so that it doesn't absolutely suck and everybody hates it? Microsoft is reportedly potentially exploring an ad-supported version of Xbox Game Pass. Premium currently sits at $20 a month. Ultimate recently lowered from $30 to $29.99. Shout out to Asha. The question is, how can you serve this many ads to make it work? You would potentially need to serve 800 to 1,200 ads in a month to be able to bring $23 worth of value back to your company. If you're the CEO of Xbox, what are you doing for this one? Colin, I got to go to you first on this one. Is this realistic to even implement?
Well, I came to this take a couple of weeks ago, and I have now been defending on LinkedIn and other places since then. So let me kind of distill the take, which is, I not only think Game Pass should have a free tier, I think all entertainment properties with a subscription model should have a free tier. So that is Netflix, that's Disney Plus, that is everybody should have a free tier, right? And I distill this down to the model of Disneyland. I always draw from this because I think it's a really good parallel, right? You have 3 tiers of your Disneyland experience once you're in the park, right? You have your Sherpas, which I don't know anyone on here, maybe Chris, you have had your Disney Sherpa walk you around the park in a private tour and you're spending like tens of thousands of dollars to do whatever you want at Disneyland. I mean, you get to go to Walt Disney's like apartment or whatever. Okay, great. That's like the Sherpa. That's your premium 1%, 0.5% life, right? Then you have your lightning lane, which are people are basically kind of still in the digital line queue, but ultimately they're paying for early access on the lines and they always get priority over everybody else. And the standby line, they're the schmucks that pay for the park access, that maybe ride on 2 rides every visit, that sit in like 2-hour lines. They're the chance that they might ride a ride. That's basically the promise that Disney makes. They're not guaranteed, but maybe you can. But this is like the same in what media should be. You're monetizing attention, and the best way to monetize attention is going to be a free tier. And they all bemoan YouTube's existence, like, oh God, we compete with YouTube. Oh fuck, TikTok's coming for our lunch. And they ignore their whole fucking business model, which is they're free. They're free with content supported by ads. That's the model, right? So get to the free tier. Now, what would it be for Game Pass? They're uniquely situated to be the one company that has nothing else, no fucks left to give. Basically, they're like, you know what? We're never going to claw back our market share in console. That ship is fucking sailed. Sony has dominated the living room console and Nintendo owns the other side of it. And we're fucked with Steam coming in our living room. So what can we do that none of them will do? Go free, go ad tier, right? And that's the big push I think they should put on the table. And Asha comes from Meta. She's bringing in people from Meta. What Meta does super well is fucking ads. You can complain about everything else they do because Zuckerberg's living a midlife crisis where he's pretending he's not a media company. But what they do really fucking well is ads. They are the best at ads. So bolt an ad engine on top of Xbox and monetize the hell out of free attention. And if you think free is not a drawer of people in your platform, I will take the other side of that bet on Kalshi every day. I'll be like, yeah, they will draw in everybody worldwide into the platform with free games. Now, is it all premium games? No, it's windowed content. That's the magic. You take something that's old, you bring it on that platform as something else, right? You take Gears of War and their dinosaur-esque games that no one wants to play, you bring it in a free tier, so that people are interested in the new fucking Gears of War, which per my data right now says no one gives a shit. So that's my point. Free ad tier is where everything's going. It's going to happen in the next 5 years. And the first media company that realizes it is going to make a fuck ton of money.
And on our lovely display here, you can see a visual representation of how great this experience would be. Koji, go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you're going to own nothing and like it, then it might as well be for free. But I got to say that Disneyland is the worst example you could have given because it is one of the most expensive places in the world to visit straight up, even if you are going for the free tier. But you know, I mean, you started this topic by saying they'd have to serve X amount of ads for it to even make sense. Well, no, they wouldn't. If they had all of the eyes in the world, then the prices of those ads would go way up, and they wouldn't have to, you know, it wouldn't be nonstop ads every 5 seconds. You get to play a game and you get an ad. And I think that like the YouTube example is perfect, right? Like it is probably the world's strongest content engine as far as like adults, kids, and everything else are concerned. Like no one, I mean, people watch TV here and there, people watch movies, but I think YouTube is consumed on a level 1,000x any of that other stuff. And so, and the reason they got that way is because it's free entertainment. And you know, I think that as per the last topic, you know, gaming is going to have to evolve to survive without VC funding, without whatever. If there's a free tier on Xbox Game Pass and it is wildly successful, it'll evolve to fit into that narrative too. So like we're looking at it right now being like, well, how can these people afford to make games that are going to be given away for free on Xbox and blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't think that'll be a problem either. I think that, you know, again, if we're going to own nothing and like it, then it might as well be free.
Wills, I see you spamming to get in. Is there a world in which you can play Xbox games and not just be miserable getting one of these ads every 30 seconds?
Absolutely, because I think that what Xbox has a really good opportunity to do here is curate and present games to users for free and build that hype. I think that, you know, like, do people care about ads? You know, I think we're all, and I'm very much, you know, privy to this feeling as well of like, oh, I'm morally superior. I don't, ads will like make me lesser of a person, so I'm going to avoid them. Most people don't give a shit. Most people don't care and are willing to slog through hours and hours of ads if the content is free. So that's just the ground level. But what the real side, by being able to offer their own games for free and get studios attached to these franchises and these IPs that people love. That's where Xbox has dropped the ball over the last sort of 10 years, is not catering to the phenomenal IPs that they have. And like Xbox was a culture back in the day. The Halo 2, Halo 3 culture that Xbox had and built and monetized and got people invested in. That's what we need to get back to. I want to have like an Xbox t-shirt with Mountain Dew on it. Like that that Xbox used to have that energy. And by bringing people into these IPs for free, making them a core part, curating that experience, because curation is really valuable right now. People don't want to sort through hours and hours of shit games. So if they can do that with their free tier, and we're going to talk about the Fortnite experience. The Star Wars Fortnite experience does a really good job of this. They put the curated items on the top, point people towards the correct way to experience the brand. And that's what this free tier can do. I'm going to go over a little bit because there's a really good example of how offering a game for free did really well. And I think it's called Graveyard Keeper, that was recently released by the publisher Tiny Build. They were launching Graveyard Keeper 2 in a couple of weeks. So they released Graveyard Keeper 1 for free, and they smashed CCUs on that game. They made, I think, like $250,000 on DLC purchases for that free game, and then were able to blow out the launch of Graveyard Keeper 2. That model of offering people the prequel for free and then getting them to buy the sequel, that's a proven model. That can work. And if Xbox Game Pass does it well, I think it can bring Xbox back into the limelight.
Colin's itching to get back in, then I'll go to Chris.
I got to give two clarifications on this before I hand the baton. The first one is, in regards to Game Pass, ads would be A tier. They're still you could still buy your way out of ads. Like, I don't watch YouTube ads because I give them my $15 a month, and it's the easiest subscription I have in my entire tiers. Like, here's my money. I value my time. But a lot of people actually value their money more than their time because they have to, and they'll sit through ads to get to free, and free is an incredibly powerful thing, right? That's my first point. And so my second point is, I think, to echo what was just said, is like, yeah, people, you use it as a mechanism to drive interest into franchises. There's so many dormant franchises at Xbox that are literally doing nothing to drive value to Microsoft holistically that they could just bring into the fold by just saying, here it is for free. Just watch a pre-roll on the screen load of the platform, or watch it for free in between games, right? I do not advocate for ads in games. I don't think that works, but I do advocate for ads at the platform level where you can aggregate, get all that consumer data, and do really good targeting, which is what she's bringing in at Xbox to kind of do. She's bringing all these meta people that do just that. And then my last point on this topic, at least for now, is just like, this is a move that none of the other platforms can do, like in gaming. Valve will never do it because they hate ads. Gabe hates ads. Nintendo will never do it because they value the premiumness of their experience. And Sony, as bad as Microsoft is at ads, Sony's even worse. And that's the one risk to Xbox, is Microsoft's basically history in ads has been pretty littered with awful decisions. They are the one hyperscaler that doesn't have an ad business, but this could be it. It's staring at them in the face. And I think this is the direction they're kind of testing and moving it in towards. And I just hope if they're going to do it, it's free. Don't charge people. People don't want to pay and watch ads. People will accept free equals ads. That is an exchange that consumers are able to make now, or willing to make now.
Chris, if I'm on Hulu and I pay $8.99 a month instead of $18.99 a month, I still have to watch an ad like every 8 minutes, and it's like 2.5 or 3 minutes. They basically reinvented cable. No shocker there. If I'm on TikTok or Instagram Reels, I just swipe and I get an ad, and I just swipe past that ad, and in half a second, it's like it never even existed. In what world can gaming coexist with something that is in this kind of parallel, this duality, where it's either like you barely see it at all, or it's like you literally can't do anything else for 3 minutes until you get past this thing?
I mean, ads are very well established in mobile, right? And have been for years. And, clearly the motivation for this comes from watching the valuation of AppLovin and how AppLovin has gone from a kind of, niche, in-game advertising company to, a company that's, on par with Google and and other major in Meta, and in that conversation as an ad platform. I think that people are already used to ads. They're not used to them on the TV when it comes to games, right? And I think it would be a mistake for my girl Asha to do this right now, because she's crushing it so far, making very gamer friendly decisions. And I think Xbox is the hardest brand to do this with, because it has some of the most hardcore, most like purist type gamers. So it would be a real hard thing. I could see it working if they did it kind of like Colin's suggesting, where it's like, hey, there are some games for free. There's like 5 games for free this week, and you can play them by watching an ad before you play or something. Like I could see like this, like I think it would be smart for Red Bull or somebody to, sponsor like this game brought to you by Red Bull, and you watched a quick ad, and then you got to watch it play the game. But I think that, but I think that overall it's going to be very hard. I mean, if you look at where the growth has been, or how it works on mobile, it's really rewarded video advertising, and they're surfacing ads every 30 seconds, which is just a lot of ad load for a TV user. But to your point about Hulu, it shows you how valuable these ad-based businesses can be, because they're literally raising the price of these subscription streaming services to compensate for how much money they're losing when people stop watching ads. So they're monetizing extremely well on the advertising side. And I've said for a while that like all the growth in gaming left in new users is going to be ad driven, because all the people who have disposable income, some of these markets like, Latin America or Southeast Asia, Africa will start to develop more, and they'll have disposable income. But in the meantime, all that growth is going to be ad based. So I agree with Colin's business thesis that like if you want to grow, a lot of your growth that you don't have is in ads, but it's very hard for Xbox to get there, I think.
I think Chris would like it more if she just fired her entire advertising team and used AI instead, though.
Not typing you in.
Yeah, I mean, listen, has there ever been a worse time or a better time rather to take a swing that might change the DNA of the Xbox audience? Like, Xbox is in the worst position that it's been in the last 30 years. It feels like now is the right time to shake things up a little bit. One of the things that was really interesting when I was doing research into this topic is that 75% of total subscribers to Xbox Game Pass is on the ultimate tier. They do a really good job of converting people who have actually played Game Pass to the highest spend tier within the Game Pass ecosystem. What they've historically done a terrible job at is getting people to try Game Pass in the first place. I think offering a free tier that allows people to get their foot in the door to understand, hey, this is a service that can provide a ton of value, leveraging Asha's AI background and change and have dynamic offerings for different users so that Joe and Wills and I will see a different suite of free games available to each of us based on the games that we are playing on Game Pass is an excellent way to get us hooked into that ecosystem. They're already converting at 75% on the top tier. If you can bring in a user, cater an experience to the types of games that they want to play, dynamically leveraging the background that Asha has here, bring in some of those meta users to run ads that don't make people want to bounce from the platform, you now have a really clear pathway to bringing more people in, increasing the overall width of the top of that funnel, and then moving people down the funnel towards the ultimate subscription tier, which is probably the best product available for gamers today. There are still some economic troubles on the side of game developers, right? Game Pass is a little muddy when it comes to whether or not it makes sense from a financial perspective, but from a gamer perspective, there's no argument that it is the best product that you can spend $25 a month on. They just need to get it in the hands of more people. I think that this is a genius move. I'm going to say it. They're going to bring up the dynamic tiers. Everybody's going to have a customized experience on Game Pass. That's what's going to lead to people wanting to convert to the ultimate tier. I think it's a great move.
Wills, Joe, anything you want to add to this one before we move on? We got 2 more banger topics. Want to make sure that we squeeze in. All right, let's move on.
I just think everyone here, notice everyone here is in agreement. This is a great move on every measure. It's a consumer win. consumers who don't want to plunk down, who don't want to commit to, whatever, $250 a year or $300 a year, I guess, in a commitment financially, get a chance to come onto Game Pass, see what it's all about. And yeah, you get an ad for Uber. And that's a great placement right there. That's a very contextual ad that you have up on the screen, and it would probably make me pick up my phone and order some pizza when I was in the middle of a game of Halo. So,
oh my! I also love the sentiment that everyone here is just like, surely it can't get any worse.
They have nothing to lose, right?
Exactly.
And one more thing I think it should be said is like with the UK going after Sony now on how much they're taking off the top from publishers on selling games in their ecosystem, like, and then let's say they drop it by 5 or 8 points to kind of, say, oh, you can only take 22% off the top or 20% off the top. Like ultimately they're gonna have to find that revenue elsewhere. And if Xbox moves first, they can kind of corner that spot of the market. So if that's where the ball is going, less money on fees, basically, then they're gonna have to make up that money elsewhere. And they're also desperation to make their margin profile of Xbox look more like 30% and less like teen percent, right? Whatever that teen is. So
great stuff on that one, guys. Topic number 4, Star Wars, Fortnite. Even the biggest IPs are starting to feel a little bit flatter than they used to. But are you buying or selling Star Wars as a top of funnel IP for these major gaming activations? Call it already with an early thumbs down. Star Wars is obviously everywhere right now, movies, TV, but this is also not as big of a drop as, say, The Simpsons before, where it was a full battle royale takeover. There's no lightsabers in the main mode like there was the last time they did one of these activations with Fortnite. There's no marquee story quest, mostly creative UEFN stuff being made by the community or their approved developers. And loud sentiment online is that they're a little bit underwhelmed with this activation. Star Wars, potentially the most valuable IP in all of entertainment, maybe save for Pokemon or something like that. And it is the biggest, Fortnite, obviously the biggest live game on the planet outside of Roblox. Is this the point of oversaturation for either Star Wars in particular, or these kinds of activations where we just say, hey, take all of our stuff, put it in Fortnite, and we're going to both benefit tremendously? Chris Heatherly, I know you shared a post on LinkedIn that I'll let you talk about, sort of the engagement metrics that you've been seeing as a result of this activation. But that being said, buy or sell Star Wars in Fortnite this go round. Chris, I'll send it to you first on this one.
I'm selling. I mean, the reason I would be selling is I think that the bigger issue is that while they had from their perspective, some success with some of the games, in particular Droid Tycoon, peaked at 90,000 concurrents. That's not a bad number. I mean, it's, I looked this weekend, it would have been like, in the top 15 on Roblox, but it would have been low on in that 15. It would have been, top, 5 or 6 on Steam. So, 90,000, concurrence is nothing to sneeze at. But it didn't bring anyone incrementally into Fortnite. And I think that's the bigger problem for Disney and Epic at this point, is that Fortnite continues to trend down despite this event. So it didn't really change the shape of the curve for Fortnite. And the original idea for this investment into, from Disney into Epic was that they were going to, build a digital Disneyland. And then my understanding is there was some scuffles between the two teams, and the Epic people pushed to just start doing more content in Fortnite. The problem with Fortnite, I think, is that it's just seen as a shooter and a battle royale game, and people don't see it as a generalized gaming platform like Roblox, which is ironic because the two things that have really popped off in the game have really been Steel of Brain Rot and this Tycoon game, which are both Droid Tycoon, which are both Tycoon games. So it's seeing some of the same play patterns that work on Roblox working inside of Fortnite, but not enough to lift the overall. And I think that's the bigger issue. I'll say one other thing, which is, for the Star Wars IP, like, man, what a sad day. Like, it used to be that when you drop some Star Wars, like people would come running, but they've given away this integration too many times in Fortnite. And I think in general, like the IP is just not, I mean, you see the tracking for Mandalorian is tracking to be the lowest opening for any Star Wars movie ever. So I just think that the IP has been overexposed. It's got real brand damage from the culture wars. So, it's showing you the weakness of Star Wars, which is really kind of a boomer IP.
We were having a Star Wars related discussion at the beginning of this episode, and I think you guys mentioned like 4 things I didn't even know were out. We're at that point of oversaturation with Star Wars. Wills, I'll go to you next. Buy or sell this one?
Yeah, I think I'm going to sell this one for the main reason that I think the whole problem with this, and the whole reason that like this was going to be such a big deal, and we've been talking about this for so many years, is because Disney was so hands-on with how this was going to be implemented. It was going to conform to all of their kind of specifications, and they didn't want people doing things outside of the bounds with the Star Wars IP, and I think that that's cost them. I think that, the people who love this franchise want to do cool stuff with it and want to have creative freedom with it. And I think that the way that it was held back, the extent to which that this was curated, and curation can be good to a certain extent. But like, as Chris said, this is a boomer IP. What gets the kids going is being able to do whatever the hell they want. And I think that bringing more of a focus to that could have saved this launch. But that's not how it panned out.
Joe, we buying or selling this one?
Sadly, I'm a Star Wars fan. I actually was a producer on a Star Wars kids mobile game like 10 years ago called Star Wars Rebels Recon Mission. So Star Wars is near and dear to my heart. And I think that this is as good as it could get. What you're looking at on screen, this is as good as it was going to get in today's Fortnite universe. And so in that regard, Droid Tycoon, friend of mine, is the CEO of that studio, Future Trash. His name's Kevin Marciano, brilliant guy. And they crushed that. They crushed Droid Tycoon. Nonetheless, it's not fun to play these games. They're just Frankenstein versions of Fortnite, because the character controller is still the Fortnite character controller, and that doesn't make sense in a Star Wars universe. I played all 3 of the top featured games, Escape Vader, Galactic Siege, and Droid Tycoon. And, if you need to grind out your Fortnite Battle Pass, this is a great change of pace. If you want to play a great game, let alone a great Star Wars game, this isn't gonna do that. And if you look at the Fortnite concurrency, it is unaffected by this launch, and they just keep doing the same thing over and over again at Fortnite, which is just trying to shove more and more IPs into the Fortnite character controller and gun controllers and camera, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's great for the hardcore Fortnite audience. It's something new. It's something fun. But in terms of it being a platform, I've been saying this for a long time. I'm glad to have one more venue to say it at. This is not a platform. Let's stop calling it a platform. This is a game with mod content. And this is some exciting new mod content for Fortnite. And in that regard, it's a win.
Joe, if you had to advise them, would you say do these IP integrations but slightly differently, or would you say move away from that, just make Fortnite great again, and then maybe revisit this down the road?
I think that, I've obviously been following Fortnite and playing Fortnite since its inception, and this is a bigger philosophical issue almost. So a little, this is a little bit of a TED Talk moment, because my whole thing is that they actually had their own fictional universe going at the beginning of the Fortnite kind of live services saga. And people were kind of interested in what they were doing. And there was the cube on the map, and there was, and then they just started bringing in IP, and they saw that worked. And they just kept bringing in more and more and more IP. Well, it's not very special. There's no trading economy. There's no status economy. There's no rarity economy around these collectibles. This isn't a collectible system. It's just a series of cosplay. It's just a series of digital cosplay in different Fortnite modes. So I think that, they can't put that genie back in the bottle. What they can do, and what will be absolutely massively successful when they are able to do it, is unlock the goddamn character controller for developers to animate, equip, and customize inexperienced avatars however developers want to let players do it. And now you can make games, not Fortnite mod content. I've only been saying it for 4 years on every podcast I've been on, in my newsletter, on LinkedIn, Blocksonomics. Anywhere I can say this, I say it. And I hear maybe UEFN-6 or UE6 or whatever may have that capability. The problem, and is the last point I'll make, is they're in an innovator. They're in a classic innovator's dilemma. The skin shop is what generates profits for them. So as soon as they allow developers to alter the fundamental in-game player avatar experience, the skin shop is arguably going to be substantially devalued. Epic's own skin shop. And if you look at where Roblox makes money, they make money selling costumes, Roblox proprietary avatar costumes. That might be a little bit of their revenue. It's certainly an insubstantial piece of what makes the Roblox economy and growth engine go. It's all in-game rewards, in-game communities.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic point. Glad we double clicked there. Thanks, Joe. Let's go to Knock and then we'll tag in Colin.
Yeah, I think part of the problem that Fortnite has is that it is unique in the experience. Like, if you played all the way back at Save the World, it was a really interesting concept, but obviously did not capture a wide enough audience. You bring in Battle Royale, and all of a sudden there's this really interesting mechanic around building that allows for an incredible amount of skill expression. The problem with that is that you look at a game that is a hardcore game like League of Legends, and you look at it from an outsider's perspective, that's an intimidating game to look at. Fortnite is not an intimidating game to look at, but when you play the game, the skill gap and the skill expression within that game is so wide that it's really difficult for a new player to come in. And it's part of what Joe was talking about when he mentions the actual character itself, the angle, the perspective, the third person. It's a really tough thing for people to get accustomed to if you're not already accustomed to that behavior. Now, what Fortnite did with the IP when they ran the course of the Kevin storyline, which is the cube that Joe is talking about, and when Donald Mustard decides to walk away from Epic Games and his storyline had been completed, was they move into these more brand activations. Now, at first, that brings in a ton of new eyeballs, a ton of new players to the game. There's all these fun experiences. It was still early enough in the life cycle where there weren't enough well-developed players that made the game difficult for people to get involved. What's happened now is they're doing a lot of these IP activations to get people accustomed to seeing IP they're familiar with within the Fortnite environment and Fortnite ecosystem. To Joe's point, it hasn't worked so far because it just feels like Fortnite but Star Wars or Fortnite but Simpsons. I think when you do allow users to get creative with the way that they interact with the character and with the camera, you now have a really deep library of IP that they can build experiences around. And I think that that's actually the game that Fortnite is playing. I think that they need to know, they know that they need to do something fundamentally different from the character perspective. But what they have been incredibly successful at is build a massive library of assets that you can use as a game creator to express something that you want to express with IP that you're already familiar with. In what other game can I go into, or platform can I go into and create a game with some of my favorite IP? The answer is there isn't a whole lot. So I think that they have part of the puzzle here. They need to fix or find that last piece. And I think Joe's on the money there, which is the controls and the environment and the way that you interact with the game is just too unfamiliar for most people for any of this to matter today.
Joe, I saw you wanted to jump back in.
I just wanted to very quickly add. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to very quickly add. I agree with everything you said. There's an incredible asset toolbox for people to use. And this game we're looking at right here on the screen, Galactic Siege, actually allows you to play in costume. And this is one of the first times, from what I understand, you can play in costume, which is a huge step forward just there, because it's like, okay, I want to make a full themed SpongeBob game, but then people have to play as their Fortnite avatars. So if they don't own the SpongeBob skin in Fortnite or whatever, so there's not, then they can't experience the full immersion of the SpongeBob world, which is a huge miss, and it's a disconnect. But even here, what the point I wanted to make was just watching this clip play out over and over again. This is not the way people move in Star Wars.
No.
This isn't right. You know what I mean? And like when I was playing Droid Tycoon, God, I want to zoom my camera out so I can see my base. That's what you do in a Tycoon game. You've got to be able to see the base you're building. You've got to be able to see the kind of, city urban design of the base that you're building so you can take it all in and enjoy it and feel that sense of completion. But with the fixed camera and with these fixed controller animations, it just doesn't feel like a real game, right? And I think looking at this GIF you have running here, or this clip you have running here, really, hammered that home for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Colin, go ahead.
So I want to address Chris's original post because I think I said something to the effect of a slowly dying game grasping onto boomer IP to draw in the kids. And let's just take that statement apart bit by bit. Fortnite has been on a decline since Tim Sweeney decided to go to war with Apple. That's just in the numbers, right? He decided to light his entire company's value on fire and then give all the money to litigators as he goes to war with Apple for the greater betterment of the industry. Sure, I can buy that argument, but to the detriment of the company he actually sits in front of and runs, which is Epic Games, and then by proxy, Fortnite. And so they're trying to find ways to claw back out audiences and win over the quote unquote kids, which I would be frank, they're kind of fucked when GTA 6 comes out. I would look at Roblox coming on one end, GTA 6 coming on the older side. They're going to get squeezed in the middle and they're going to lose a lot of audience to people that are going to run off and play Grand Theft Auto 6. So what are they trying to do to kind of win the hearts and minds? They're grabbing onto my IP, which I am not their audience. I'm a 40 plus old person who loves Star Wars, grew up on the original trilogies, has learned to like the prequels because the sequels exist. And now I'm like trying to tell my kid like Star Wars is cool and he could give almost two shit. Well, he actually likes Star Wars, but like I digress. Most kids give shit less. They're more interested in Sonic than they are Star Wars at this point. And so I don't know. This is like a doomed to fail strategy, and it's not Star Wars' fault. I'll actually give a shout out. LucasArts Games are doing a good job in terms of licensing. Now they wrestle control and they stand up that division back at Disney in like the beginning of this decade. And you see the Fate of the Old Republic trailer, like that looks dope. The Star Wars pod racing game, coming out later this year, looks dope. They're kind of getting back into a groove of maybe we can make some good solid Star Wars games again. But like this, to Joe's point, this isn't Star Wars. Star Wars is racing. Star Wars is, space combat. Star Wars is all the things, like even Battlefront or Star Wars Battlefront 2, the OG version for me personally in 2005, not the EA one, but like ultimately that's Star Wars because you're an army fighting an army. But this isn't Star Wars. This is Fortnite with Star Wars cosplay. And I, as a Star Wars fan, could not be any less interested in this. And I'm not the audience they want.
That pod racing game, though, does look friggin' incredible. Koji, tagging you in.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your original question, I'm buying because I like to buy low and I like to gamble. But Star Wars is bad. And I say that as somebody who is obsessed with Star Wars, has been obsessed with Star Wars. But they've done... Look, we spent a lot of time talking about Fortnite, but I think like Star Wars needs to take some blame here for sure. Because they've done a lot... And made a lot of content, but like nothing good. And the last few good things that they've made in the last 20 years have no Jedi in them, right? And they've gotten some characters that could have been epic characters. We got Oscar Isaac in the new trilogy. We got John Boyega in the new trilogy. But instead, what they've given you is Baby Yoda and another guy that looks like Boba Fett, right? Like they haven't created any new iconic characters for you to love. And I think that it was better when we were starving for content and wanted something new, and they weren't giving it to us. Whoever gave me the shut the fuck up there is dead wrong, because like everything that has come out in the last 20 years is absolute trash. And the only reason you like it is because you love the original so much that you're like, I really want this to be good. It's like when a bad Radiohead album comes out and all these fucking guys are like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. This is like God's gift to my ears. Like, no, you just like Radiohead so much that you want these things to be good. And
Absolutely.
so I think that like Star Wars has squandered an opportunity. But the reason I say buy is because there is still a lot of passion, a lot of love there, and they do have an opportunity to turn things around. And I did say that they have created some good things in the last little while, like Rogue One and Andor. And I think that they have the opportunity to use the world that they built, one of like the biggest IPs ever, to do something great and come back and rock the world. But if they continue on the way that they're going, it's going to be absolute dog shit.
I got to jump in. First off, they just came out with an incredible show, Maul, which stars a Sith Lord who I believe runs around with a lightsaber that's dual bladed. So I just put that out there.
Hold on. You're talking about another character from a movie from like so fucking long ago. Like, give us some new stuff that people will care about.
We'll
don't
go to
rehashing. This is how we got. Let's bring back fucking the Emperor. Oh, and by the way, Rey is her like clone daughter or some bullshit. Like, you're part of the problem, brother.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, I mean, like, if you want to call the Kathleen Kennedy era of Star Wars a massive failure, which we were talking pre-show, sign me up. I'll sign that petition, first one in the line. She has been a disaster steward of the Star Wars IP since Lucas brought her in. She sold it to Disney. She ran it into the ground at Disney, and now they're picking up the pieces, and I'm more bullish on them coming out of it now. But, like, they've had good IP. It's just like, like Star Trek, Star Wars fans are now kind of the same boat. Like over half of it's shit, and you got to sift through the sands. And like, there's great animated content they've been doing that's created great characters that are beloved by those who are in the Star Wars ecosystem. Have they created a mass, quote unquote, beyond the films breakthrough beyond Mandalorian? No, and that's entirely because of her. She made dog shit sequel movies, and they are hated by the community. They're indifferent by those that are not in the Star Wars community, and they're going to be spending the next 15 years papering over all that shit. Which I think Filoni's the right guy to kind of give a swing at that. But like ultimately, I think there is better stuff that Star Wars has been doing. It's just not made it and percolated to the masses per se. I just point to Clone Wars as a great example. Clone Wars is amazing. All mostly original stuff within that, built on the original prequel movies. And an original character in Ahsoka Tano.
Chris, if you had to salvage this activation, what would you do?
Look, I think they need to make the digital Disneyland. I think, this is my Club Penguin roots, but I just think placemaking matters, right? It's an Imagineering principle, but actually having all this stuff rooted in a world and not just as a map, I think matters. And you're missing the immersion, and you're missing the storytelling, and you're missing the sense of place that I think people really want. So I would stop doing this kind of integration, and I would start working on building, a digital Disneyland based on the UEFN platform that had its own front door. And I think that could be way bigger than Fortnite because, look, with Disney Infinity, we did, there were 3 versions of it, right? There was Infinity 1, which was the Disney characters. There was Infinity 2, which was the Marvel characters. And then there was Infinity 3, which was the Star Wars characters. And we thought that we'll do the Marvel and Star Wars are going to be so much bigger than Disney because those IPs are so much more popular because we're adult men in our 40s or whatever. Well, it turned out that the one that was really popular with kids and families was, wait for it, Disney. Why? Because they're kids properties and they're family properties and they're considered kid friendly, and Star Wars and Marvel compete against everything else in gaming, right? So, what's really under optimized, I think, at Disney is the Disney IP. I sometimes say like it's crazy that Mickey Mouse has never had a feature film, but Mario has had 2, so I just think that I think that there's an underestimation of how big the Disney brand is. I mean, there's literally a thing called Disney adults, right? That spend all their vacation money and save up just to go to Disney parks, and where's their game? So that's what I would be focused on. I think that opportunity exists, but it's not in Fortnite.
Yeah, flashback to, was it Michael Christina a few weeks ago who was saying that if they released Kingdom Hearts 3, it would be like bigger than Grand Theft Auto 6, which I think is a little crazy, but there's something there. There's something there. All right, let's move on to the last topic of the day. I know we're running out of time. Head of product role. I'm hiring, not really. But my question for the panel is, would you rather have the wily 20-year AAA veteran with Riot and Blizzard Games experience, or the 24-year-old prodigal son, the Roblox builder that's made a game that has 25 million lifetime players? The same role, the same comp, but you only get one hire. You have to pick between this veteran or this UGC prodigy. That's all the context you really need. Joe, I'm going to you first. Naturally, take us away.
This is such a interesting thought experiment. I know all these young developers, and they're incredible. I mean, I literally work with them. I built a company around that mindset, around that kind of work style. And I've had the chance, as someone who's been in the industry for a while, to work with people who are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. When we work with minors, it's all done legally, by the way. I had a job in high school. People are like, you can't work with minors. I'm like, I had a job in high school, guys. It's okay. Minors can work. There's legal ways for minors to work. So I think the thing I want to note, I think we need to just, I would politely suggest we change the experiment a little to, instead of 25 million visits, more like 250 million visits, because actually 25 million visits to your Roblox experience is, believe it or not, not that many. So I wouldn't trust anyone with 25 million. But what I'll tell you is that's an easy win for the Blizzard designer. Here's what's so interesting, and I don't know if I have a clear answer on which person would be better. A lot of it's going to depend on the type of game. Because Roblox designers, not 100% of them, but probably 95 to 98% of them have no foundational first principles in game design that they're working from. They have a deep intuition that is right a lot about how to make games and how to make games fun, but they don't necessarily have a standardized playbook of things to go through. They're not very practiced in tight and disciplined process around product. Now they can be easily, because they're so smart and they're so talented and they're so motivated, they can easily be trained up on that. I think though that if you're building something with a collection, let me say this, if you're building something with collection economy in the live services space, I'll take the Roblox person. If you're doing something that requires really thoughtful progression, design, and new features and deep gameplay feel, the Blizzard guy is going to be much more valuable, and the Roblox guy is going to have an enormous learning curve to get caught up there.
Great points from Joe. And Knock, I saw you play the mic drop. I'm going to go to you and then to Koji.
Yeah, I look, if you're talking about an IC, I'm taking the IC, the Roblox designer, every day of the week over anybody from a traditional AAA studio. But if you're talking about the head of a department, somebody who has to lead a team and rationalize decision making, I'm not taking the 20-year-old fucking kid who is still currently in bed and it's 6 p.m. Eastern right now, right? Like, I'm not taking somebody like that to lead a team. You want him working under somebody who understands how to make a team, who understands how to drive to product decisions, who understands how to empower somebody like him to be an incredible asset to the team that he's working with. But I'm not picking a 20-year-old kid to lead a team. I saw this in professional esports. I didn't work, to Joe's point, I didn't work in games with underage kids, but in professional esports, most of the talent there is between 14 and 17 years old. And what you see there time and time again is that the best players mechanically are these super young prodigy-like children who are playing the game, who have a deep feel. They're ethereal about or very cerebral about the way that they play the game, but they don't show up to practice on time. They're undisciplined with the things that they want to get done. They can create a play out of nothing. You should have lost a round in a game of Valorant, and they'll win it because they're creative and they have mechanical skill. But 3 rounds later, they're overspending on a particular buy round or a save round, and they've thrown the economy out of whack, and now you're going to lose the next 4 rounds with the team. I think when you have prodigies like that, you need structure around them. So for me, you're taking an executive from Blizzard every day of the week if he's meant to lead product. But if you're looking at an IC, you're taking the Roblox kid 11 out of 10 times. I don't even think it's particularly close from that POV.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's add some boxes here. I'm going to go to Koji. Let's say it's a brand new IP and they're given $30 million. Koji, who you taking? The Roblox kid that has, to Joe's point, 250 million lifetime players, or the AAA guy who, I don't know, worked on League of Legends and World of Warcraft at the same time?
Well, that becomes a bit more difficult. You know, the $30 million is a bit of a wrinkle, right? Because what I've been preaching this whole episode and you know, even before, it's just like things are getting cheaper. We're moving more nimbly. I'm an indie game guy. Let's vibe code the shit out of whatever and see if it works. And you probably don't need $30 million for that. In that case, I'm taking the kid every time, because I think that that's the direction in which we're going. Look at like the friend swap that people love. Look at like the rapid iteration that people love. I think that makes sense. But if you're going to hand somebody a $30 million budget, there's no way I'm giving it to a fucking child to to manage, because that will be gone in a heartbeat on the most ridiculous bullshit in the world. I think that like when it comes to how to properly budget yourself and run a team, to Knox's point, like you need experience, because you need to have made those mistakes in the past, right? And maybe not on a $30 million scale, but like enough to know like, oh, okay, well, I did this and it was a big no-no the last time, so I'm not going to do it again. And you can't really just like hand a kid a gun and expect him not to shoot somebody, And so I think that like the budget has a lot to do with it. But from a pure like I want to make a game perspective in 2026 with the tools that we have, I'm going let the kid innovate. And the fact that I know that someone mentioned earlier that they don't have like the practice skills or design, they're not really painting inside the box. I'm like, good, do that. Because we need to break out of it. Like everyone else here has been basically the people preaching for VC money. I'm like, no, let's do it from the ground up by myself. But if I have $30 million, it's a different story.
Knock, you wanted to get back in, then I'll go to Colin.
Yeah, just an extension on what Koji said. But like, look, man, I still don't know what I don't know. And I'm 30 years old and I've been working professionally for the last decade. A 20-year-old kid doesn't even know what they know, let alone what they don't know. And I think when you're leading a department or you're leading a team or you're leading a business, one of the most powerful things that a leader can do is get out of the way of people who do know or look for help. A kid who's building a game, leading a team from a product perspective is not going to know that they don't know how to do a particular thing, or they don't even know how to begin to gather that knowledge. And I think that that's an incredible piece that people miss. Understanding what you don't understand is probably the single most important thing that you can understand as a leader, and a 20-year-old kid is just not going to have it.
Counterpoint though, Knock, a lot of good leaders that I've met in the field have irrational self-confidence, and I feel like there are certain 20-year-olds that can exude irrational self-confidence. So who knows, man? Who knows? It could balance the scales.
Colin, go ahead. Then I want to tag Joe back in.
Do you think this is the conversation that Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel had when they gave Zuck all that money to found Facebook? I mean, like, God, we need to bring someone from Yahoo in here. They really know how to run a business. Got to get that grizzle and grit in here. AOL maybe is another good hire. Like, here's my issue with hiring the Blizzard folks. Basically, is like, or any proxy Riot, is like, are their best days already behind them? Are they already in a position where they are, quote unquote, claiming more credit than they actually did? See all the startups that got a bunch of VC money that went under that all came from Riot and Blizzard. Like, that would be my concern. But I do think the idea that a kid doesn't know what they don't know, absolutely. And that's why I would hope that, like, if you're going to bring the kid into that particular role, they'd have some sort of leadership structure or like mentorship structure, like a Peter Thiel, like a Mark Andreessen, to kind of guide them into what they don't know. But you want people to break the wheel. You want them to repeat the past, which is what I think you're doing when you're bringing these executives from, name your big gaming company. They're going to do the same thing they did, which is not necessarily how you move markets unless you're just trying to make the same thing again and again and again. So I think there's validity to both sides, but if I had to choose, I'd choose the kid.
But do you know who Facebook hired right after they raised all that money? They brought in Gideon Yu and Owen Vendetta, two guys who had experience at Amazon and YouTube. So they did bring in executives to help guide Zuck, because he is the young kid who doesn't know what he doesn't know.
Joe, back to you.
Totally.
Well, yeah, and then they brought in Eric Schmidt, right, to be CEO of Google, to give Larry and Sergey, who are obviously very intelligent people, some more senior level leadership on the organization side. I work with young founders every day who might be making anywhere from $30,000 to $2 million a month, and trying to help them figure out what do they need to grow. And a lot of them are like, I'm going to figure it out myself. I know I could bring in somebody, but I don't want to, because I'm already rich and I'm just going to figure it out and keep every dollar in my pocket. Is that short-sighted? Is that the best? Will that get them the best result? Hardly ever. It will almost always get them a suboptimal result. But there is this spirit of self-reliance in this community, which comes from the fact that a lot of these developers started making their own games when they were 12, 13, 14 years old. Now they're 20 years old. They're high net worth individuals, and they're not going to listen to anybody a lot of the time. But that's not who you're going to get to come work from Roblox as your head of product. You're going to get someone who hasn't hit that tier yet and who does want to learn. I think the thing I just wanted to add to the conversation, that if you haven't had experience working in the Roblox community, Roblox developers are the most commercially motivated developers you are going to be. There is no distinction between success and income to the Roblox world. There's no critical acclaim. There's no VGAs in Roblox. So there is this game commercially successful? And there's a lot of value to that mindset in an algorithmic platform like Roblox to be sure it's the only way to win. But in mobile free to play or PC free to play, can that also be available? Yes. Totally different ball game, right? So live services, Roblox developers bring a huge amount of, I think, value, passion, and drive to the table that you're definitely not going to get from the traditional AAA live services business.
Joe's crushing it on his first week here. Over to you, Chris.
Well, as the only Gen Z person on this panel, I'm torn. But Joe made the best argument I think you could make for young people. I think, the fact that they are, that they're conversant with the creator economy, that they're willing to be solopreneurs, that that they're young and they've got energy, that they're, that they've been trained to, if they don't know something, learn, look it up on AI or look it up on YouTube. Those are all, real benefits. However, I think the hidden value, if you're playing Moneyball, is in older, experienced people who are willing to use AI, because, people like me and Tony who, are like giddy at the prospect of being able to make stuff by ourselves or with a small group of people, instead of having to, just sit there and go, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? And those types of people have the ability to play a lot of roles or wear a lot of hats because they've done it in the past, and they're generalists who have a lot of experience, who are able to who know the right questions to ask across a lot of different verticals. And with AI, the most important thing is like what direction you give it and what questions you're asking, right? And that's what young people often don't know, is they don't have the context or the experience to really know what to tell the AI to do in the first place. And in a world where everyone's got AI, we used to have a saying in the PC business, which is everyone's cooking with the same water. Now everyone's cooking with the same intelligence, right? And so, what's going to set you apart is knowing what's possible and having some of that stuff that you're not just going to get from prompting an AI. So, as much as my loyalties are to Gen Z, I think you need to hire, incredibly attractive 50-something-year-old, AI using executives and pay them a lot of money.
Great stuff from Chris. Wills, tagging you in to hear your point of view and then also your MVP vote as we wrap up this episode.
Yeah, I look, my strategy, if you give me $30 million to say that I can hire someone, I'm going to take the Roblox developer, but I'm just going to lie to him and not tell him we have $30 million and just iterate shit and just like spin up ideas, put stuff out, give them small budgets, accelerate, decelerate, shut stuff down when it's not working, and just pump out as many games as possible, because that's what works. It's those short iteration cycles. How many games can you get out of that $30 million is going to be the defining factor. And I think out of those two choices, it's going to be the Roblox developer that's going to be able to put out more. Do I think that, committing to like that style of monetization is going to be the best in the long run? Joe would be the expert on that. I'm not an expert on Roblox monetization, but I know that if you're trying to make original IP games on Steam, a lot of those same principles still apply in terms of getting games out quickly, responding to market trends, and being able to get those games traction early on. And I think if you're able to bring in someone who can iterate, has that intuitive kind of click of how games work, what's fun to play, you can spin out dozens of really cool games with a budget like that. So that would be my vote. And I think that's I'm also going to send my MVP over to Joe. It's been so cool hearing all of his expertise on an area that I don't know much about.
Knock, who you got for your MVP of the week, brother?
Oh, it's Joe. I like bringing in new people. I like it even more when there's new people can kind of come in and throw their weight around and give us some expertise. And for me, it's always fun when we can have some discourse. So Joe's got my vote.
2 for 2 so far. Joe, who's your MVP of the week?
I thought Colin had a lot of great things to say around the Star Wars IP and around. So I really enjoyed hearing his point of view on that, and I will give my vote to Colin.
Love that. Colin, congrats on a vote there. What's your MVP of the week?
I think I gave 3 mic drops to Joe, so be disingenuous not to give it to him at this point. So, Joe, you get it. Yeah, it was really interesting hearing how your perspective coming from the background you do on just both the VC side as well as the advisor side as well as the Roblox ecosystem side. So it's been a pleasure, Matt. Really good stuff.
Koji, who you got? You're muted, buddy.
Really?
I'm shocked. Yeah. I was. Hold on. Before I give it, I'll do this because I haven't used it all episode. Yeah, no, I got to give it to Joe like everybody else. I when somebody comes in and knows what they're talking about and can fit in and put up with the rest of us, I think that they deserve the MVP. But also there was a lot of good points given, and I also gave him a mic drop, which I am loath to do to anyone else on this panel. So. Yeah, MVP.
And Chris, last but not least, who you got, buddy?
I gave Joe 2 mic drops, so I have to vote for him for MVP. But my runner-up is Colin. He was crushing it today too.
Love it, Joe. A clean sweep on your very first episode of Gamified.
Guys, I'm blushing. Thank you. It's very gratifying. Thank you for having me on the show, guys.
It should have taken less than 159 episodes for us to get you on, but that means you earn 60 seconds of FaceTime. You're free to plug anything that you would like on the end of the show here. Congrats.
Well, I guess I just wanted to say that I do write a weekly newsletter called Blocksonomics. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, you can find my newsletter, and I try to talk about these topics. I try to connect the bigger picture. What's really interesting to me, what's going on right now, is all of the change that UGC and AI is going to bring into the video game space, and how do we continue to build long-term careers doing what we love in the space in a way that feels meaningful and authentic, knowing that it's going to change so much over the next few years. So that's something I'm really passionate about, and thanks for an opportunity to shout that out.
Absolutely. I'll put it in the link of the YouTube video as well. Make sure you guys subscribe to that. Congrats again to Joe. Amazing stuff. We'd love to have you back on the episode or on the show again in the future. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Gamified. Big hugs. Thanks, guys.